All right, here we are. Good morning to people on my side of the country. Good afternoon to you, Pete. Good
Yes.
evening to other folks around the world. And it's nice to be here. Now we're doing this bi-monthly. It's really great to show up. So thanks for showing up, Pete.
Yes. I'm
And
happy to be
people,
here.
right on. And for people joining, thank you. And we are going to talk today about um, ways to work with the distractions and the busyness of the mind. And then it'll be about 20 minutes, and halfway through, we'll have a guided meditation with Pete to give you some um, tools to work with because we can always use more tools. And, what I want to say about this busy and disruptive mind, or even distracted mind, or yeah, like just the kind of busyness, is that everything has a purpose and everything has a place. And what I'm finding more and more is it's just we can find different ways to interact with things. So I'm in no way wanting to say, like, get rid of that distraction, get rid of that busyness. Instead, um, make it some tea, offer it to the table, offer it to come sit at the table and listen and get inquisitive. Because if it's there might be a gift, there might be a story, or there might be a releasing that needs to happen so that you can get to what you were doing, which might have been trying to meditate or do your homework or be present with somebody. And so, and then Pete and I were just talking before we pressed record. I'll just bring this up now that I was saying, I think that there's a stigma around talking to yourself. We have this thing like, oh, that person talks to themselves, they're crazy, or they're this and that. And so, Pete, I'd love for you to explain what you explained to me for the differentiation.
Yeah. So like this is one where after we talked about, I did a quick Google search, and it was 2018 when they did the study, and it was Bangor University where they talked about people who talk to themselves have a higher IQ than those who don't, right? Who think it's crazy and just try to ignore it. But there's also a big distinction between people who know they're talking to themselves, going, all right, I'm working through this problem, right? And those who really think they're talking to someone else. And it's one where we see, I say, more in our history, people who have like brain injuries. Like I think of football players, even like wrestlers who have been on the news where they did some horrendous things, and people were like, oh no, they kept talking to as if someone was there, and it was not them they were talking to. It was as if it was a different person. And to me, that's a big distinction between like understanding ourselves and if you want to think of the term being crazy, um, talking to someone else, right?
Yeah. And so just, really like let that be sort of a foundation and a reminder and like an opportunity and um, a welcoming to yourself to speak to yourself, and it's just you and you. And it's actually, in my opinion, one of the most powerful things that we can do. And also just to distinguish the difference between talking to yourself and listening to yourself. And I'm finding more and more from my own personal experience and the studying that I'm doing that listening to these things that we usually try to push away, or, I'm trying to meditate, get out of here. It's like, hey, I'm noticing you here. What's going on? Like, and then learning again, we talk about this a lot on here, how to ask good questions, which Pete, you're so good at. And until you develop the vocabulary of these good questions, and there's like great lists of questions um, out there, you could just simply say, instead of saying go away or trying to breathe it away or focus it away, just put your attention there and go, hey, I'm noticing you here. What's going on? And then if you can allow your imaginative mind to accept whatever it says, to just ask more questions. Oh, what's that about? Oh, that's interesting. Tell me more. Instead of like, you know, you see a green man there and you say, "What are you doing?" And it says grape. And you go, "That doesn't make sense." Instead, you can go with the images and the symbology and just and see what goes on. So, um, yeah. What do you
Yeah.
think?
Yeah, like I think it's something we all experience, whether it's we consider it busy or disruptive or busy and disruptive, right? I think we all experience it. I know for me, like it was a big thing. Um, and like even when I think of like with my client, I feel like a lot of it stems from stress, from overthinking, and
Mhm,
even our lifestyles we're living.
mhm,
Because I think you're right. Like when we go into a meditative state, these thoughts come in not because they're trying to disrupt us,
mm,
but they're there to be like, hey, we got to focus on this right now.
mhm.
This is something that we've been pushing aside for so long that now we're in a state to actually deal with it.
I have to just interject real quick. I think also that as soon as you relax a little bit or tune in a little bit, it's right there, but you just couldn't see it when before you took even just a breath or a couple focuses. What do you think about that?
Yeah, it's one where I think again, like where we have something like 60,000 thoughts in a day, it's some ridiculous number.
Wow.
And so, like, yeah, like to me, it's pretty amazing. So we have 60,000 thoughts in a day, and they say 90% of them are repetitive, but that still leaves, 10% not repetitive. And those are the ones I think really come through. And they're there. So, like, let's say I'm having a really stressful day and I go into a meditative state and it's like, hey, this has been really stressful. And if I go, yeah, no, I don't want to deal with that. It has to come back, right? Whether it's in that moment or later, it's going to come back. And when we can go, okay, like maybe it's, being a parent and you're like, oh, wow, like this is really stressful. What is it trying to tell me? Is it saying, hey, staying up till 2 a.m. isn't working, especially when the kids are up at 6? You know, is it saying, you know what, like how we plan our day isn't working? We're going to have to make adjustments. Is it saying, hey, you just need a break? Like you need to find time where you can just actual relax without being like, oh man, I gotta focus or worry about the kids or this or that. You know,
Mhm.
it's listening to it, going, yeah, like, what do you need from me?
Mm.
How
So
how can we work through this?
let's kind of go through that a little bit. Like, what would be so? For example, um, you're sitting there trying to do something, and this thought is coming through, and then you're remembering this one fight, and then you're remembering this one other thing, and then you're trying to push it away, and then you remember, oh, let me try this thing where I listen. Okay, so then the next step might be, um, like, what would you say, for example? What might be the next step?
So this is where I say I go into, I call it my round table,
Oh,
where
yeah.
it's like, where it's like I want them to sit next to me, right? I want it to be like those late night conversation with my friends where we're sharing a cup of tea or a drink, just talking, right? We're not trying to disprove, we're not trying to prove. We're just there having that honest conversation of what's going on,
Mm,
with that emotion. And this is one where I'm a firm believer that when those thoughts come in, it's not our conscious mind doing it, it's our unconscious mind.
mm.
And when we think of our unconscious mind, we typically go, well, I'm making it up.
Right. But
You
then in that moment, I think it's so important for us to remember that the making it up is potent.
It's
It's
potent.
it's not to dismiss.
Right. Right. Us going, we're making it up is I say, a huge unconscious response. And so what we typically do is go, well, I don't want to be stressed about that. It's like, well, no, your unconscious mind is stressed about it. You know, we can't just ignore it or pretend it's not there or go, well, I'm gonna edit it. Like it's not that stressful. It's
And
not
and
that
then again, in that moment, it's like instead of editing it, we can ask questions,
you
right?
ask
Isn't
questions.
that the difference between us trying to control something opposed to listening to what's actually controlling us.
Right. Yeah. And
Right.
that's to me like it, one of the biggest things. So yeah, so like we kind of go into that relaxed state where they feel free to flow, right? And they're gonna come in, and then we go, wow, like if it's something we really like, by all means, let's enjoy it, right? Reminisce if you want to think of it that way. But if it's something where it's like, oh man, this is really stressful, this is scary, this is hard, say, hey, pull up a seat, sit next to me. Let's have that conversation, you
Mm.
know? And again, for me, it's not about being like, no, you don't have a right to be here. It's not go away. It's that honest listening and talking of going, all right, so why is this important right now?
Yeah.
And a lot of us, we play the what if game, right? With those thoughts. Well, what if, I leave the oven on and then what if it burns the house down? What if it does this? What if it does that? And I find with that what if game, if you play it all the way through, it goes full circle to where everything's okay.
And another thing too is like there's also a thing you could do is if it's the what if game, you could say, hey, it would be so great. Are you willing to take on a task? Which is that from this point forward, before we leave the house, will you make sure that we turn off that stove and do those certain things and then remember so that we can be at peace throughout the day? Like giving these fears or these thoughts jobs sometimes seems to work for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, like every emotion we have is out to benefit us.
Right.
And that's hard for some people
Yeah.
because they go, Pete, how's my anger benefiting us? It made, my family leave me. It made this happen. It made that. I lost my job because I got angry, but the anger was really there because it's saying, hey, I'm trying to help you.
Yeah.
It's just confused on what actual help looks like,
Mm-hmm.
and when you can have that moment of like, yeah, here's your job. Your job is to go, if someone spits in my face, then you come. Yeah. But if someone criticizes me and I did make a mistake, that's not time for you.
Mm-hmm.
That is a time for you to go get, understanding so he can come out to look at it.
Right.
You know.
Yeah, and then you might find that anger actually and understanding got in a fight a while back. So then it's like, okay, let's have an imaginative play game where you guys come sit at the table and talk about it. Imagination and play and really not just really setting logical like logical mind could be there, but like allow that other part to dialogue, to play, to imagine and just kind of see how those things happen.
Yeah. Because to me, the unconscious, like just thinking about like, anger and understanding, arguing with each other, we feel like we're making it up, right?
Yeah.
And so typically we go, well, I don't want that. Let me edit it. It's not really anger, it's frustration.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, no, your mind said anger. We'll stick with anger. Don't edit it because then you realistically, if you think about it like dominoes, you're having that domino now go off on a side path versus the path it really wanted to be on.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why it's important not to edit it, whatever comes up, right? It can come up like, hey, in the third grade, I tried to be understanding when my best friend Joey did this, and then that understanding bit me in the butt, and now I can never be understanding. I have to be angry. You may not consciously go, oh, I remember that moment, but it's there.
Absolutely. I was just doing a visioning this morning or last night where as I started to breathe and relax and trying to do something, these other things were coming up and in. And at first I was trying to edit it and change it so I could do my original intention. And then I chose to listen. And then it was so incredibly interesting what memories were coming up. And they didn't make sense to me and they still don't make sense to me now, but I've just am learning more and more to go, they're there and they're coming in and they're connected to something. And if I don't remember to write it down, I might not remember it, but just to give yourself that like experience of allowing these things to come. And, I've been wanting to say too, sometimes if I'm doing something and like, maybe like anxiety or fear will show up, um, I'll ask them, "Hey, do you want to join in on what I'm doing right now? Would you like to have a part of this healing, or would you like to be part of this experience?" So I don't always change my trajectory for the thing that comes in, but I'll invite it in, and often it says yeah. Like, so often the fear and anxiety just wants to hang out, but it shows up in the way that which is like a fear thought or anxiety thought, but I've named it, I've given it, well, it named it, I heard, the name it gave me and the part that it is in that inner child system. And so often, as soon as I invite it, it wants to be in the comfort of the healing space that I'm doing. Now, sometimes a conversation needs to happen. And also there's sometimes, just want to like say for viewers, sometimes like you had mentioned, sometimes something will come in and you don't want to dismiss it. But I would like to add that I think sometimes something will come in that you really don't want in your space. And that can be, and it's not like safe or comfortable for you to deal with. And I'm curious about what you think. I just want to share my part, which is that um, I've done some things where I go, where can you go where you will be most at home and in your own healing place where you are welcome? Because you are actually, this is not your home. This is not the right place for you, but I will help with the envisioning to help you get, to God or to the light or outside of my body. Like, even if you are existing and you don't know where to go, it's not inside my body. And so
Yep.
then I'll at least do like escorting outside my body. And more often than not, I think even the most evil of feelings or people, they want to be in a place where they're loved and where they're happy and where they're welcomed,
Yep.
ultimately. So that's those are the tools I've been using, and I find them helpful.
Yeah, it's one where I think it's the body keeps the score. I wouldn't 100% quote me on that, but they talked about feelings that live in our core are stronger than feelings that live outside us or on the extremities of our body.
Mm.
And sometimes, like you said, to me, all emotions really want to be part of who we are, right? They want to roll. You know, some of them, let's say someone who grew up with anger being a primary feeling that they have, it may reside in their core, you know, and it needs that ability to say, hey, look, like, you can't live in here anymore. You got to live out here, you know, even if it's just for a little bit, right? So we can both learn a different way.
Mm-hmm.
And then we will find that appropriate place for you, you
Mm-hmm.
know. But because like if you think about it, like any business, any corporation, you can't rely solely on one person,
Mm-hmm.
right? Sometimes you need the lawyer to clean up the mess for something customer service did, right? Sometimes you need the accountant to make sure everything is on the up and up, you know. Sometimes though, the accountant steals your money, right? Sometimes the lawyer goes for his best interest versus what's best interest for the company.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Even in those positions, sometimes they get the wrong message, or we hire the wrong ones, or we bring in the wrong emotions. We got to go, hey, like, we got to take a step back. We got to fix this before I invite you back in. But when
Mm-hmm.
you come in, you're gonna be different. Your role is gonna be different. There's gonna be
Mm-hmm.
checks and balances to
Mm-hmm.
make sure.
Hmm. I like that. Yeah, I met my inner bouncer, and that was fun. I mean, that's just like the fun of being able to use our imagination. It's like, who does the checks and balances? It might be a judge for one person. It might be, mine was this big bouncer guy. And that was just, and he loved being that guy. He was
Yep.
like, he's like, oh, this is my job. He was into it. So we went past our time of doing the guided meditation, but shall we move into that?
Yeah. Let's get into that.
Okay.
So with everyone, as the safety reminders, um, Make sure you're not driving or doing anything that you need to remain fully alert. And if you are doing those things, come back later to get the full benefit of this. But for everyone else, take that, get nice and comfortable. Take that nice deep breath in. And then exhale slowly and just closing your eyes. And I want you just to maybe allow just a wave of relaxation just to flow through you from the top of your head all the way down to your feet. And just begin to notice the thoughts that are coming and going as you try and relax your body. See, some of them right now could be saying, oh, now's not the time to relax. We have to do this. We have to do that. It might be thoughts of, who are you to think you deserve to relax? Maybe it's a voice that goes, this is nice. We've been needing this for a long time. But just begin to notice all the thoughts as they come and go. And as they come and go, maybe you can begin to notice the feelings behind them. And just for a little bit, just for a few moments, I want you just to imagine you're at this round table. Could be like one in an office building or one at home. It could be just a magical one that you get to sit next to. And you got your favorite beverage in front of you. And across the table is that emotion. You recognize the looks in their eyes, the smile, the frown, their face. And they got their favorite beverage in front of them too. And it's as if it's two old friends who haven't seen each other in a while, catching up, going over each other's lives on what they've learned over the past years, decades, could even just be months. And you're not there to convince them to say they're right or wrong. They're not there to say, hey, you're right or wrong. You're just there chatting, catching up, reconnecting with each other to understand each other differently. Because as you're here, you may begin to notice as you focus on this, your mind settles down. Every breath, your mind becomes a little bit calmer and clearer and more peaceful because you're really connecting with that other emotion on what it's trying to tell you, to show you, to teach you. To know you always have the power, the ability to come here whenever you may feel overwhelmed or stressed or busy, to welcome this warm feeling of understanding, of communication. And while normally we would spend more time here, this was just a quick coffee, a quick moment to catch up. And what I want you to do is just imagine, picture, see yourself getting up and giving that emotion a warm hug and embrace like any two long-lost friends would do, to remind each other that you're going to continue this conversation later. But for now, you just get to go your separate ways. Because in a moment, I'm just going to count from 5 to 1. And on the count of 1, you can open your eyes, feeling refreshed, feeling energized. As 5, you just become more and more alert of your surroundings, the temperature of the air, how it feels, whether it breathe in and breathe out. As 2, just getting more and more refreshed, more energized. 3 and 4, eyes beginning to open. And 5, eyes opening up, bringing with you a sense of inner peace from this moment. And just take a notice and take a moment to notice how you feel.
That was awesome. I got such a giggle out of like what showed up on the other side of the table. I was just like, and it wasn't a funny image. It
Mm.
was so interesting. There was like, it was the, um, I guess the emotion or the like, I don't know. I can't wait to like go deeper with it, but
Yeah.
it was such a surprise. It was not at all like, it came and I didn't question it because that's what I've really learned to do. But I don't know if you saw, but like I was like laughing. I like would have laughed more if we weren't on live, but
Yeah.
I tried to hold myself back. But it was like so so funny, and there was nothing obvious about what was funny. It was just something
Mhm.
about like the old friend, the connection, and so that was super cool. I can't wait to get to know who in the world or what in the world like this being was. So, um, thank you for that, and that was a great one, and, those that are watching, I hope that you get something out of that too, and the more that you do these guided meditations, visualizations, listening, not judging yourself, really getting back into your imagination and play, um, giving it a place at the table, seeing its value, it's a pretty fun world, you know?
It really is. I think a lot of the times we get so wrapped up into the busyness that we forget to check in.
Yeah.
You know.
And I think a lot of times we check in, um, with the editor and the intention opposed to the listening. And they're just really different qualities. And I'm still really learning how to like listen and to like really deeply and consciously listen to others, including myself. It's a practice, but I just keep coming back to the profundity, the profoundness of listening. And also I feel like about listening, um, it's not just a listening with the ear. There seems to be many, many um, spheres or kind of like slices in the cake of how a listening could happen. That might be a fun one to do
Hmm.
following time, just to like explore the various facets or phases of a listening.
Yeah, because I think one of the most profound ways to listen is by feeling.
I love that.
You know.
And that brings up another point, which is that I forget that there are certain people that they don't have access to feeling. I have too much. Too much. But, that's I forget that actually that's not accessible to everyone.
Yeah.
But I like that, that the listening is feeling. And, maybe also the definition of feeling has many facets too. Someone might feel through their ears or through their eyes or through, right? There's probably many senses actually to feel,
Yeah.
right? Like, I mean, emotionally,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
With the imagination.
Yeah. It's one where if we think about like just guided meditation visualizations, it if I think of how to make it the most powerful, it's the visualization plus emotion.
Hmm.
Without the emotion, it's just like a movie, right?
Hmm.
It's just a daydream. It's just, something that's not real. But when you add emotion to things, that's when it becomes real, you
Hmm.
know? And if I
Mhm.
think of like the movies that I watch, the ones that I absolutely love isn't because they're cinematic, amazing movies, but
Mm.
it made me feel something.
And I hear that a lot. People say they don't remember you by what you do, they remember you by how you made them feel.
Yeah.
So that's very cool. Well, I just appreciate every time that we get together on here. Thank you for showing up and sharing your amazing experience. And as always, anyone and everyone is welcome to contact us for if there's stuff you want to hear us talk about. If you have questions, either publicly or personally, reach out to either of us on any of the platforms. And until then, hope you all have a great day and staying warm in the winter. And if you're in a warm environment, then bless you. Send some of it my way. Any last words, Pete?
You know, just take time to feel what you're feeling and understand it's there to help you, even if you don't see it yet.
Awesome. Good words. All right. Till next time, everyone. Thank you so much.